I had every plan in the world to continue that Neblime versus Sarcasm set today, but a surprise match landed on my desk on the very latest pre-release, a Terran versus Zerg Neblime against Benza on Victory Square. And there's only one replay, and it was fairly large, so there must be some kind of macro game afoot. We will have Neblime as the Glacial Terran in the bottom right, against the Benza Zerg, the Coyote Brown. That's not shit brown, you can't call coyotes shit. I mean, they are kind of annoying, I guess. And maybe some people out there pronounce it coyote, because I think that's how you pronounce it if you're a Native American or something. I'm not 100% sure. Either way, though, we do indeed have Victory Square. Dead Infested corrects the color. Yeah, Dead Infested will be the observer, the witness, the referee for this particular match. And yes, Neblime submitted this replay, and there was some discussion after the fact, so it did at least give me an inkling that this game had some macro associated with it. I predict we will see 300 Masons, but who knows? The next version of Victory Square will actually feature some fixes to this tile in particular, and stuff like it. I did end up fixing some other bugs where there was something busted over here in that Sarcasm game, so you will see that fixed in this version, and when we go back to the Sarcasm versus Neblime games, it will still be there, so we'll have some time-traveling tile bugs thrown into the mix every so often. And this Mason is going to go ahead and scout Benza second, judging by the queued orders. Benza has taken the 11 o'clock base, the third base, sort of. I mean, it's a back base. I would take it third because I like the tempo of having a little bit closer expansions towards my opponent, but, you know, it really depends on my race as well. I think Zerg, you can kind of get away with throwing your macro hatch, your first hatch, anywhere you want. It could be in your base, it could be in your natural, it could be, indeed, in the 11 o'clock base in this position, or, you know, 1 o'clock up here, or whatever. 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock being the other spots on the bottom half of the map. Definitely seems like an option. The Maverick is now dispatched from the stockade, a fairly bog-standard choice, but on pre-release compared to the last tournament patch for Ascension 6, one of the things you'll notice is that the Mavericks have an increased movement speed compared to normal. They have a 10% faster movement on average, so, or in general. Obviously that compounds when you factor in the fact that they can stim, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Mason will arrive and get bopped by the Fast Circuit, which is an interesting decision here. I think this wasn't the first game that they had played. In fact, I'm pretty sure this was played at like 3 a.m. for Neblime, so he's been staying up an awful long amount of time. His Mason getting bopped there. Doesn't really get any confirmed scout on what structures are involved, but he can surmise that this back base was taken. We could actually see Neblime opt for a fast star pad as a result. He is harvesting Vespene from with all 3 workers from his geyser, and 2 workers on the ridge, so he's almost fully saturated on that, which is, you know, something to note, and something that is, I would say, significant. He's also expanding in the 5 o'clock base. That is just fine. And we're actually seeing even more Kagrants come out here, so I feel like maybe, I wonder if Neblime was like practicing his bio busts or something, and Benza felt like, well, I can't easily defend this place without a macro hatch after taking my natural, so I'm going to take the back base, and I'm just going to turtle up over here instead. You can 2-base turtle. I was actually talking with Hupsea about this, and that is apparently how you say his name, not Hupsaya, but Hupsea. Hupsea, it was discussing this morning, or maybe it was this evening. I can't remember. Yesterday evening, I guess, because I'm recording this in the morning. But before I went to bed, anyway, he was mentioning that he thinks that there's a lot of cool things in CMBW, and he thinks that you can kind of make a decision to spam out and swarm a turtling player with a whole bunch of tier 1 stuff and kind of just prevent them from ever taking a 3rd base, because it's usually pretty easy to turtle on 2 bases. And I guess Victory Square can be an exception to that, because he's talking about the maps that he's seen so far, but in this map it does seem like it would be possible to get up to 3 bases. I would also say that Otherworld is probably also possible for that, since there's an in-base, a safe natural, and a closer natural, and I think in all of those cases you can pretty easily defend it. So maybe those 2 maps could be exceptions. Maybe the revamped version of Infinite Velocity would also be added, considering it's such a wide map in terms of its you know, rush distance and such. But in any event, it's something that he observed about CMBW so far, that one of the things that you can end up seeing from the various angles of attack is that, you know, if you're the Terran in this situation and you want to fight the turtling Zerg, well, they can turtle, But will it be super effective? We do see the double star pad here, which I think is a response to the potential of the turtle that we are going to see mass wraith, a triple star pad as well. This is a very heavy investment, but if it can pick off enough workers, then it will be just fine. However, there are a whopping total of 4 incoming spraiths and 4 completed circuits. There's anti-drop and anti-air. Benza has not made a single combat unit. He is now going to queue up a Nothor core, maybe a second pair over there. Yep, so it looks like he's going to be swapping over to Nothor cores. But I feel like his coverage is pretty good. The only area that would be abusable would be like the extremities over here with the wraiths, and they can obviously like attack the circuits and stuff, but the Nothor cores are going to hatch pretty soon, and I think that'll ward this off. It's very expensive, and his worker count isn't as high as it ought to be considering he's Zerg and expanded faster. But given the circumstances, I'd say he'll probably be relatively immune to the early harassment. Looks like neblime is even going to take a little bit longer as he's recalled his wraiths, maybe by mistake there. He is getting a Trojan out of one of his star pads. And the shaman has indeed, looks like it has indeed deployed. So there, off it goes. It will be escorted to heal the wraiths. Yeah, isn't that funny? We do indeed have the 7 Naths. I guess one of them is somewhere else. Oh yeah, it's gone off to the top right. So now it's 9, and the count is climbing. So Benza seems to be, both of our players going for a very sort of aggro setup of the early game. This Hatchros gets put down, and it might get put down in the other sense of the term as well. But I think the Nothor course will be more than enough to ward this off. I don't think that the Hatchros will be dying anytime soon. And there goes the committal. I'd say multiple of these wraiths should be going down. Indeed, yeah, there's only the 2 that are alive, and Nothor cores obviously can chase them down. But when Benza shows all of his Nothor cores like this, which I'm not saying it was a mistake per se, it does mean that, neblime can just start adding some watchdogs. He's only putting 1 down. That scares me a little bit. The Mavericks are going to be a little bit more mobile than they were in previous versions of the game, so they can respond to this threat a little bit easier, particularly when they stim. The wraiths are doing little dancing sorties to prevent the Nothor cores from getting as effective trades as previous. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for neblime, his units actually kind of got tismed on the stockade positioning there, so with the watchdogs finishing and the Mavericks still over there, they can actually absorb that pressure a little bit, and now the wraiths are sort of trying to scramble to thin the herd and wound more, but there's way more Nothor cores where that came from. Here comes 14 additional, and that means that we're looking at a total of 18 right now, trying to huddle over the shaman like a barrel fire with a bunch of homeless people. That's not going to work out too well. So most of the wraiths have now gone down, although there are still 3 star pads producing them quite fast. Here comes the watchdog. It's going to get burned down. Again, you're dealing with 16 Nothor cores, all damaging the watchdogs. They will go straight through the masons, but that kind of just gives them a little bit more space to go back in. And when you're thinking about things like, Mutafights versus Terran, Nothor cores can offer a similar role where they're going to try to bob and weave and do some damage. So you can see here, they are actually breaking the sort of Maverick hold here. This is actually going to put neblime back quite a bit. The Masons constructing the watchdogs are dead. One of those watchdogs itself has actually died. That one will start to get replenished. The Shaman will continue to repair the units that were damaged, but now there's another flock of Nats. That's what we were waiting for, is the reinforcements, which additional rounds have been being made behind this by Benza. So I think he's just going to try to stick to this. His dropping a lot. He went from 21 to 11, and now that count is also decreasing. But again, he's doing a lot of damage. The wraiths are dead. More watchdogs are being erected in the same time. So it looks like he's going to evacuate with 7. He does have 4 more over here by that 6 o'clock base, and there's 8 more coming from the main. He's actually pumped nothing but Nats. And meanwhile, look at the gas here. Neblime can drop tier 2 pretty soon. He just needs a few more minerals, and I think he's held. And that's the beauty of sort of like, you've got throughput on Vespene from training all of these wraiths, but honestly, it's 25 a pop. Like, that's 75 every 28 seconds. You're getting way more than that, so you will be banking Vespene. And since you weren't actually, in all the hubbub, you didn't put down any fulcrums, you haven't been training additional shamans or anything like Cyprians, even though maybe it would have been wise to more thoroughly riposte the Nothor core assaults. It is a situation where we even have some Vespene being disposed of in a little bit of an awkward way there. No workers have been actually tasked on to this base. So, that's a gambit where there's a lot of Nothor cores made by Benza, and now his opponent is going to be teching up. However, Benza needed to get a lot of Vespene in order to really make that work. He's not diving directly onto the Cyprians. Now he is. Okay, they are going to get picked off. This base will get stopped. This is still good usage since he already spent all of this money anyway. He can go ahead and pick off the Shaman. That gets canceled, so all good there. If he can pick off the Trojan, it's just going to delay a further drop. in a response, but it looks like he's going to lose a lot of HP on his Naths thanks to the Cyprians popping at it around the same time. It's still good because it does mean that Neblime can't drop nearly as easily. Like, I know it sounds silly because it's just one Trojan, but when you're in the groove of building nothing but Wraiths and such, you don't really want to do that. And Benza's actually, you know, you got to give him credit, even though he's floating a decent amount of money right now, he is taking a 4th base. In this situation, I'd probably flip that switch and just go straight into, like, expand to another main, top right or bottom left or something. Probably top right, since we already know that Neblime seems to be favoring the left-hand side of the map. That's where he caught the Wraiths to begin with when they rolled up to his natural. So additional units are being made. You could obviously try to go for some anti-air defenses in the natural, since you do know that he's going for a lot of Wraiths. But your Nathor are going to provoke some response here. Mavericks stimming. Cyprian's also in there just to zone them back, and now the Wraiths are going to have to take a bit of a different path just so that they don't get caught. Now we're seeing some anti-air defenses, but only in the 12 o'clock base, funnily enough, and some workers are on their way. I do like the macro hatch here. Obviously, you want to get more Kagra spread over in this location so you can hold it a little bit easier. The Hydrath Den is complete, and the Iral Iris is put down. So even though, you know, we're a little bit late on our tech from Benza's perspective, I still think he's in an okay spot, right? He is up a base. He's actually technically up 2 bases, but in terms of actual economics, I feel like he's probably up more than that. It's just he's investing a lot of money into defending this base, but he's harvesting Vespian from it, and that's the important part. This is causing him some unnecessary headaches, though. He's losing a lot of workers in a situation where he was already only even with his opponent despite his base advantage. And yeah, sure, he's going to shut down the attack with the Naths, and might even be able to... He should actually try to pick off all of them, but he's done a little bit of leading there, expecting the Wraiths to just leave, and no, they're just going to commit to killing as many Droleths as possible, which is good play coming out of Neblime. He should be able to get one more. There we go. And the rest of them are history. And yeah, he went down to about 54 workers at some point. His actual count is 49. That was a very grievous loss for Benza. And I feel like it could have probably been avoided if he had preemptively dropped, you know, 2-3 Spraits over here. That sounds excessive considering the rest of the, you know, static defense he's already dropped. But that's the difference of, like, okay, if you add 3 more workers to the tally of workers spent building structures, it's different than losing 10, 15 workers or whatever it was, right? Clearly that's not going to be a superior trade. You want the defenses instead. And the reason I say 2 or 3 is because you scouted 3 star pads. You know he's been constantly making Wraiths. When you attacked him again, he had some Wraiths on the field, so you knew that he was still making them because that was more than he had before. Now, this Maverick does indeed catch that the 12 o'clock has been taken. That may be the next target for a more bio-focused ground army. It's actually kind of combined arms right now because Neblime is going for the Cataphracts. We are absolutely going to see some more action out of him, and the defenses here are going to be upgraded to tier 2. Generally, I think it's a bit of a mistake when players upgrade literally every defense. Like these structures back here, they're only going to show up if there's a drop involved. Maybe I would upgrade this one, but that is actually a pretty heavy mineral sink at some point. Like, you know, the 1 spear tith in each base seems like a good idea. 2 over here, okay, you might think that this one gets attacked next. I care a little bit less about these particular defenses being upgraded because that makes a bit more sense. And these ones on the ramp are also pretty valuable. But and just a sort of a general point there. Calculisks have less armor, have no armor pen, and have a little bit less movement, as well as 1 less armor themselves. So they are, I would say, honestly, that combination of things does make them a little bit worse in a lot of different ways. We have Starport with a commandment add-on out now, as well as the Mantles churning out Cataphracts, which are going to be very, very powerful. And I do think that the bio buffs, in addition to the captaincy becoming mineral only, are kind of huge. And tier 2 Terran might end up entering into a new age of power, particularly when it comes to the bio in general. I would say that about tier 1 Terran as well. It's just a question of, like, are people going to say that it's OP because they've never played against it and suddenly people are doing it again? Or what? What's going on there? So, looks like a random D-Matrix goes out to a Wraith. This will alert Benza that his defenses are soon going to be under attack. Here comes the Spear Tith to try to dissuade that, and here comes the Hydras plus the Calculisks to start shredding some of this stuff. But the Cataphracts have pretty good armor, and you do have to get through the Azazel D-Matrix, which actually is happening a little bit faster than maybe Neblime would have hoped. And yeah, there goes the Cataphracts, mostly actually dying to the Hydras at this point, considering the situation. However, there is another one, and I feel like that might be enough to deal with these softened up Hydras, which should actually path up here to deal with those Wraiths, but not happening just yet. I do feel like Benza's unit production has been a little bit lax. You know, obviously he spent a lot of resources slamming down a bunch of units and Nathor cores and such, right? But he's in the process of doing that. you know, since then, he hasn't really made too many units, right? The Spear Tith is going to go ahead and tickle these Wraiths just a little bit. Ooh, Oh, no. Ah, golly, gee wills. Gee willikers. It looks like, yeah, we have neblime. He's practicing some things. He does have a Seraph out. I'm looking around for any anvils. Obviously, he does have this outer lying base here now, going up to 4 bases to match his opponent. This is where we feel like Benza had the idea to expand. He had the idea to expand up here, although it is being attacked by the Mavericks, so the Skittercores are going to go ahead and mop that up at some point, surely. He also has some Fithrilisks coming to deal with some air units, including the Wraiths, although they don't have any armor, so not super significant versus them, but it will be for the Seraphs and for the Azazels. Now, we know that Neblime likes his Seraph-Azazel combo, his 1-2 punch. He likes the Irradiate, he likes the nuclear strikes, and he does have an anvil coming for a Morningstar, so that will eventually be added to the repertoire. This is turning into a Spear Tith, which is kind of cute because obviously it was almost destroyed by that. Some Hurricanes have arrived, but the Bactalisk is going to get tickled by them instead of them going all the way to the top. It wasn't canceled or it was canceled for some reason. Again, the Skittercores could have just went at any point. I wonder if Benza felt unsafe due to the potential presence of air units. And now we have a lot of Trojans out. I feel like these are going to be used for cataphracts or something, which, by the way, you can fit 2 cataphracts in a Trojan. I know it sounds ridiculous. It probably is, but nobody's done cataphract drops, at least not in a very long time. I would love to secure a, 9 o'clock position here if I'm Benza. Looking at the map state, I definitely want more bases, or I want to channel all of my available resources, which are considerable at this point, into some sort of heavy attack to really focus down things like this stuff in the 3 o'clock base, which I don't even know if Benza is aware exists right now. His Skittercores are sort of thundering around looking for things, but they don't end up wiping this position over here, which obviously the 1 o'clock base is really one of the key locations for that. He does have a horde of Bactalisks, and more are coming. They are occupying themselves right now. For some reason, this Cataphract has shown up over here, and it's just going to get absolutely ass-blasted, so that's a bit of a expensive mistake, I would say. Irradiate is dealing some damage to these eggs. I don't actually know if that kills them. I guess we'll find out. No, it looks like it'll narrowly not. Yeah, just barely he manages to not kill them. It was like a little bit of extra damage away from doing that. A single Bactalisk is an omen of additional Bactalisks coming on the way. If only they were on an attack move, they would have just eviscerated Ahmed. A nuclear strike is now painted on the Hacharosk. The air units are all the way on the other side of the map, so they will not arrive in time. And yeah, if you haven't guessed it, Bactalisks are not going to do it against Cataphracts. You do need something like a Kagralisk, or even like an Almaxilisk would be pretty legit. Something that will pierce the armor a lot better. Actually, default Hydras are probably better versus Cataphracts than Bactals are. With the possible exception of if he's following it around with a bunch of clerics or something, the Bactalisks can kill the clerics, at least with their bounces. I would also go for, Tetzoricores or something. Anything with lifesteal is likely to do pretty well versus the Cataphracts. Tetzoricores would actually be super useful versus them, because they do have the Saber Siphon. Now we have Cataphract, a couple Hurricanes, and another set of Cataphracts. So, yeah, in this situation, we've got 3 Cataphracts and about, I think, 6 Hurricanes overall. Another nuclear strike happening, random irradiate out there, not sure what that's all about. But what's the reaction going to be? He's kind of camping it with all of these Cataphracts. It's an interesting strategy. You just sort of play a VIP escort strat. We have some Tetzoricores coming, but some of them are on the high ground, which is not super useful. Nuke goes off, and that's going to be the end of any Vespian harvesting there. The other nuke was actually behind him, which is almost like, how did he even predict that? This is a huge nuke, and I don't think Benza even noticed. There it goes. It's going to hit right on top of a whole horde of Bactalisks, and that is a play and a half. Now, obviously, at this point, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that, oh my god, the radiation kills a lot of the other units as well. Neblime lost a lot. The Neblime lost a lot in that round. He lost his 2 Seraphs. He lost, I think, an Azazel, or maybe the Azazel was somewhere else. We do have another Seraph positioned over here. He's going to try to put it somewhere where he's going to be safe to drop the nuke. This will deny the mining. I think it's not going to reach the Excision, or if it does it, you can still harvest it safely from the bottom, so I don't think that's going to be too enormous. The air units are still here, but I think maybe Benza has lost track of them, or if he didn't, maybe he hasn't figured out where the nuke is. So there goes that. About 3 or 4 workers. Yeah, you're going to get some more worker kills incidentally as they come up here. And it will damage the Excision with a radiation field, but it's not actually going to do too much here. Some Vigoralisks have arrived. They are a little bit... they're 10 at less HP, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but they are 50 less minerals. So that's the reason for that. They're going to go ahead and burrow to avoid pain. We have some Matrolets out to try to give them Ensnaring Brood. Actually, the Ensnaring Brood enchanted Bactylisks are really, really legit. It looks like a nuclear strike was armed there, but unfortunately he flew too close to the sun. Now this one is going to just wipe out the mineral harvesting, although Benza has a lot. He mostly has a lot of Vespene. He could actually go for tier 3, and he's not yet doing that. We'll select that just while we watch the rest of this fight, in case maybe Benza goes for something like that. And actually, I say the fight, but there isn't actually too much of that. The nuke does end up landing, killing a number of workers, denying mining from the main, or rather from the mineral fields. He's still harvesting Vespene just fine, but he definitely needs to expand his territory. He'll soon be behind his opponent in base count. In fact, I guess he is with the 6 o'clock coming online, so absolutely a critical situation here. The Hurricanes aren't going to get too much done. An Izira Core is going to go ahead and spot out like some random cataphracts that are walking around, so a bunch of workers are rallied down here to the 9 o'clock base, and Benza seems like he'll be in an okay position, but here comes the attack, and they have some detection with them in the form of... Actually, I'm not even sure what's... No, they're just walking over it. I was going to say maybe the Azazel, but that doesn't do it. Shaman doesn't even deploy, so it just gets bopped. The Avigralisks are still burrowed alongside some Bactylisks as well, I think. But here come the Tetzoricores, and the Tetzoricores are a critical piece of this because they just won't die to the Cataphracts. They just keep on going. They're doing their little pirouette spin to deal cleave damage in an area around them. And this, combined with the Vithrilisks wiping out and debuffing a lot of these units right now, that is absolutely going to make a difference here with the Azazel being pushed away. It can't actually cast any spells. We do see some Vilgalets being casted thanks to the Matrolets. That's obviously going to continuously spawn Rillarrow cores, the Brood spawn. That's going to just add more chaos and actually devalue the Cataphracts a lot since they're going to be spending some of their multi-target on them. So it looks like the 6 o'clock base is going to be taken care of. Another nuke lands at 12, but it's pretty much inconsequential. There were no workers there for it to kill. Instead, most of those were transferred to another location. We do have 2 Cataphracts over here that have been besieging this Hatrask, and there's a couple of burrowed units over there that could assist, but it doesn't look like too much is there. We even have a horde of wounded Skither cores here, a small band of them anyway. We do need to see like a couple of units just thrown at this to stop this from happening, because he's creeping forward now that that is no longer a defensive structure. And I do think that with a little bit more awareness, he absolutely would have been able to deny that trade. Because at this point, we are dealing with, you know, the nuclear strikes pretty consistently. At the very least, over here we have, you know, half of the gas economy is gone, no more mineral economy here. And it looks like, actually, the top right, that's where Neblime is setting his sights. He did lose the Ministry. He didn't float it away, even though he had ample time to. The Daedala coming in the natural seems like a little bit of a risky proposition, but with all these Sentinels around, I think he should be okay. This is, again, he has the ability to make Avigralisks for the sort of face tanking. He has the ability to make Almaxilisks to try to penetrate armor and get a little bit more mobile and bypass the fact that, you know, there's Hurricanes and Sentinels on the field. I do think he could use them to just sort of dive in and snipe Seraphs. I feel like another option could have been Mutas, but, you know, they stack up, so maybe not. It's just these are different things that I'm sort of thinking of at this point. But Almaxilisks are also very expensive. And speaking of expensive, there's over 3.5k gas in the coffers right now, and Benza still has not gotten tier 3. That's probably one of the most critical things that he could have done. It's only 900 minerals. I mean, I know I said only, but compared to the gas cost, it's obviously much less. So he could have had tier 3 at this time already running. A good Irradiate coming out of there from the Seraphs. So actually, in fact, it looks like more than one. And a Vithrilisks are just going to dive bomb onto it. They are going to be debuffing the armor of the Ramses and the Cataphract in the process. And it looks like the Avigralisks are actually staying alive just long enough to allow the Hydras to penetrate all of the armored Cataphracts, and then the rest of them are just going to fall a little bit easier. More Irradiates coming down. We still haven't, unfortunately, upgraded the feature so that it actually works on when you click on units, but at some point we will fix that. It's just right now it's a little bit harder to use, so that's why you'll see Neblime looking a little bit goofy when he does use it. Just so that he knows that I acknowledge that, so people don't think he's just a goober. It's me. It's Blizzard code that's the goober, and us, I suppose, the goobers for not finding a way to fix that a bit sooner. At any rate, we obviously are going to be in a situation pretty soon here where the mantles are going to continue producing this stuff. The Daedala is nearly complete. We do have tier 3 finally coming, but again, it feels very, very late for your Benza. That's one point that he can definitely improve upon in future games. And yeah, he's just been losing so much value from the Irradiate, the Seraphs constantly nuking him. He doesn't actually have any air units on standby anymore. I think he will be okay over here. Maybe not, because his units are kind of... Yeah, with the D-Matrix from the Azazel, it is a good combo. And so the nuke is probably going to land. Here it comes. Absolute destruction. He ends up getting the structure and killing workers and killing military. And yes, he does lose the Seraph in the end, but that more than paid for itself. So if you're asking for help on how to defeat the Neblime powered strategy. I mean, for one, this gas isn't being harvested anymore. I think that was because of a nuke at some point early in the game and it was never resaturated. The same you could say about this area over here where, you know, you are going to start running low on coffers, although at this point minerals are definitely the big pain point and have been for a while. But I would just say, you know, you had those Skithra cores earlier, you had some Viths out. Just grab some air units. It could be Almaxilis. It could even be Nothor cores. Just throw some Nothor cores at the enemy. You know, what does he get? He can't really irradiate you if you're faster than, you know, the actual case of the unit. The missile, the, you know, APM or whatever. You can do it reactively while they're channeling it, and the Nothor cores can pierce the armor. So, I mean, they do get reduced by armor, but it's only 2 armor. It's not going to be that much. If you have, say, you know, a number of Naths patrolling around in a few different locations, maybe you can do something there just to catch it. And otherwise, if all else fails, literally just having like a complement of 10 Naths at the outer-lying bases to catch where the Seraphs have been going would absolutely be cost-efficient insofar as it would save you a lot of pain and suffering. Bactylists are going to try to make their way down to 3 o'clock, but look at all the Sentinels. You're not going to be breaching those just by yourself. You got some Convolisks out here. The Mason bravely tickling some of the units over here, and yeah, the Sentinels are going to crack shots off here just to remind you who's boss, who's daddy. This is Igor's top nemesis right here, the Sentinels, from what I've been told. Luckily, he doesn't have to worry about any Terran players that have such capabilities. Neblime is already in the tournament, so he's not going to see those in the qualifiers. Now, actually, you know, I said earlier that you're not going to be able to bust this, but in a way, I feel like maybe he was able to, and it looks like this area here ends up dying before the nuke. However, he spent so many of his units trying to get through all of the, you know, really row cores, absorbing some of the shots, reducing the damage of the Sentinels, because obviously they don't block the shot, but they do reduce it if they are the first ones to take it. Like, he definitely spent a lot of money doing that, a lot of units doing that. And now there's Cataphracts, now there's, you know, the Azazel here. Like, it is going to be a little bit difficult, right? The one Sentinel up here is a juicy target. Send the Nats up there and clean it up, probably. Cataphracts are going to try to get some shots off, but you know, there's not really anything here to enchant. There's no more Matrolets. It looks like they got sniped. Definitely a big shot because you can reduce the DPS of your opposing army just by having the Matroleth over there. Preemptively casting any irradiates here as zoning, but this base is indeed going to fall. It only had maybe 6 workers in it. It wasn't a huge loss. By the way, we're halfway to 300 workers here, so Neblime is kind of slacking, honestly. Something I never thought I'd say regarding that. Now, instead of sticking to the ramp here to get that cliff advantage, it looks like Benza is having a bit of a difficult time deciding what he wants to do. There was something happening over there where he couldn't quite get the shot off, and so he was repeatedly playing the animation, which looked pretty goofy. And scary, actually. Imagine like a full gat Cataphract with 1,000,000 attack rate. That would be very spooky. That's like a team game where you ascend it, you know? You send a corpse nearby and it enchants the Cataphract's attack rate with some Protoss involvement or something. Cataphract Aurora, anybody? Diadems are coming. Cuirasses are coming. Dude, I nerfed Cuirass armor by 2. Can you believe it? I had the gall to do that. They have 6 armor instead of 8. I think it'll still be pretty fucking good. Apothecary's coming behind them. In fact, there's going to be 4 of them in total. He's even building 7 steps. I feel like 7 steps are actually kind of a legit unit, but nobody knows about them. Seraph nuking 9 o'clock once again. Neblime has felt pretty comfortable in most of this situation, but I don't want to make Benza feel like he was never in the game, right? Like, absolutely it's possible to deal with this. It's possible to understand this. And I don't know how often he's played against this kind of playstyle. Neblime's kind of the only person to actually do it, right? Like, he's really the only person to use nukes to this degree and like nuke one defensive structure. This is like a meme that you would see where you would have AI like nuke a critter or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's a great choice, AI. You did a really great choice when it comes to that. But like, no, with defensive matrix, with Seraphs, and with Morningstars costing only 100 of each resource, like the Anvil is the infrastructure. That costs a lot of money. I would say point to that if you're worried about, you know, like trying to manage the expectations here. And the Seraph itself is a very, very expensive option. So this base is once again going to get nuked. We'll go ahead and watch the fireworks. My God, man, so many nukes. So many nukes. Green Eggs and Spam is sitting there just being super happy. Ooh, absolutely slapped by your own diadem because like a random Zethracore was in there. Another diadem being constructed over here. And we're kind of seeing the noose is tightening, right? The rope is getting into the way of things. Oh, no. Oh, no. No, you have... Oh. In a blaze of glory. Hasn't quite killed the Hatrosk, but it died now. Absolutely. Evisceration. And I feel like that's very demoralizing for Benza. He was barely able to get up to a 5th base. He finally has it, and then his original 4th base ends up dying. There's still money to be had here. Meanwhile, neblime has very thoroughly secured the top right base, and that is going to be his 6th. He can now take the top right nat, or he can take the 1 o'clock position, and that was originally coveted by Benza himself as well. One thing we never actually saw, despite having tier 3, is Benza never made the Gauntlet, the advanced worker that comes out of the Droleth. You can make that. It doesn't get consumed then when it constructs stuff, and you can just drop a Hatcherosk over here. You don't need to path through the high ground, right? So if you're at tier 2, you can absolutely do that. At this stage, we do have Diadems aggroing the shots, but the Phalanx of Cuirasses is here, and they have the shield wall fully established. We got a 7-step out, we got the Cataphracts out, we got the Silver Tongue. Dude, we got plenty of things here. By the way, if you know a voice actress for the Silver Tongue, please let me know. Good times, right? I just remember whenever I would play like one of those fan campaigns and they had like the one portrait of the redhead with sunglasses, and I don't think my mother ever was a redhead actually, but it just, for some reason I look at that and I think, why is my mom in the game? So I just keep asking that in all the briefings, telling my mom to go away. And that's what I think when I look at the Silver Tongue as well, because the Silver Tongue is also a redhead. Fucking Kerrigan. Oh, watch out, whatever that was. Oh, it was the Droleth. I was wondering what could have possibly, provided some sort of detail here. Okay, so I don't know what is going on, but a lot of Cuirasses have been fielded, and nothing but Cuirasses. We've got more 7-steps on the way. These larger-than-life fucking anime captains. They are ready to go. The Maverick angrily swears on his life that he doesn't know how that got there. Yeah, just nuke it. It's fine. Actually, this is kind of terrifying. Like, I know that when Euthermal plays his nuke strategies and he goes for, like, he'll sometimes just launch a nuke in the middle of nowhere just to spook his opponent. You can absolutely do that. Why not? Well, here come the Cuirasses. They are simply too difficult to kill for just a couple of Scorchets, so that's going to be it for that. Absolute devastation. The 9 o'clock base is going to be eviscerated. A Diadem is now cracking shots off onto the Droleths. He's moved in. Check it out. Oh. Yeah, this is a situation where, like, a lot of little things, a lot of small situations that you find yourself in, like, it just absolutely bops you. So we got some Excitralisks here. They actually do a pretty good amount of damage, as you can see. The problem is, they come a little too late. There's Diadems out all over the place. And the Excitralisk reverts into a weaponless state afterwards, but there's enough AoE from the Silver Tongues, or sorry, the 7-steps and the Cataphracts here, there's enough multi-target or enough piercing damage that it really isn't going to be enough. GG is going to be called, and Benza is going to concede the map. But man, neblime plays an entertaining game if you let him. The thing here for Benza, since he was saying that he doesn't really know how he can defeat this, or he was like struggling against this particular thing, I think absolutely, if he had gotten to the point where he could go to tier 3, he could have done this a lot better. He could have gotten to tier 3 a lot sooner. He did commit a lot of damage with the Naths, but he spent a lot of money with the Naths, right? So there's kind of I think he was still playable. It was still totally fine at that state of the game. It's not like the Blimer posted it flawlessly and then you had all these Naths you couldn't do anything with until tier 2, but delayed your tier 2 as a result. Like, that's not the situation that we had there. So I think if Benza tightens up his ability to expand and then kind of figures out how to station, like how to have the wherewithal, the mental bandwidth to just sort of like waypoint 4 pairs of Naths into the 12 o'clock base in this example, and then when he takes the 9 o'clock base, waypoint 4 pairs of Naths there, he can chew through the D-Matrix and the Seraphs if he has enough Naths, maybe more than 8, but that's just like an example for warding them off initially. He can absolutely do that. And yes, you can get irradiated if you're unlucky, but the Nathricors won't get one-shot by irradiate. So you can pull them back, or you can position them elsewhere, and you can like find a way to sort of send maybe another pair or like have other units on standby, but like those are your first responders. That's how you get rid of the Seraph or zone it away or whatever. And you also could have had better defenses before the Wraith counterattack hit. I think that was around 8-9 minutes or so. The Atlas had already gone down in any event, and the Wraiths arrive, but the real thing that happened there is he didn't have any anti-air. He had anti-air in the 4th. He had anti-air in the back base at 11 o'clock, but he didn't have anything at his natural, right? His low ground natural right below his main. And that's the key distinction there, I think, that would have really helped him if he had Spraiths at 10 o'clock or something, and just becoming more familiar with what's there. But honestly, struggling against neblime, considering he is a class 1, as we have our different classes. We got class 2 for everybody else, basically. But class 1 are like the people who should conceivably be able to compete for tournaments. And that's a situation where neblime has been, top 4 for a good while now. He made it to the grand finals as Zerg. He made it to the grand finals as Terran. In this last tournament, he wasn't able to, but that's because Hamster took him out. And then, it's just... he was still able to get to top 3, top 4, whatever. So I haven't actually seen the set between him and the Shambler that was played as like a sort of a show match, pseudo show match or whatever. But so I don't know who won out of them. That would more solidify him as 3rd or 4th place in the tournament in my eyes. But he's top 3, top 4 in that situation, right? If we count Hamster in now, he's the top 4 of the people who have actively competed in tournaments. And to struggle against him is kind of expected, especially as a relative newcomer. I think Benza definitely took it to him. He can shore up some of those weaknesses, and it's not like there's something critical that's impossible about this. I hope he doesn't feel too down on his luck there. I definitely think that he's got what it takes to eventually challenge neblime in the future. And also, another sort of olive branch to anybody who's watching, we have just done a fairly reasonable balance pass on a number of cases. Terran definitely was a little bit struggling when it comes to their bio play, and now we're seeing a little bit more bio play, although really it was the Wraiths that initially set him up, and then the nukes that, those things didn't get touched in this update. So that's a little bit more of a mainstay. But I feel like, it's sort of to be expected that we iron out the kinks as we figure those things out as well. So anyway, I hope to see more from Benza. It's definitely looking better than his game against Biddy B, which was obviously casted a little while ago, and that was much different. I think absolutely Benza could, just arrive as a fairly competent player as far as you consider the field. I think he should be able to get it out of the gauntlet that's going to lead into Ascension 7. So I'm looking forward to seeing if that bears out. And GG's all around. It was a fun game. Glad I got to cast it.